All right, what's going on, everyone? We've had a couple months off while the market has been shit. You know, I haven't been trading much, haven't been making much content, but now I'm seeing a fair few opportunities in the market. I think things are going to start picking back up again. So I thought, why not kick this series back off? Before we get started, a special thanks to Bybit. Those guys have been supporting our content for years now. They're a great exchange. I have my referral link in the description below. If you want to say thank you for any of my calls, or if I've helped you in any way, sign up to them, make a deposit, and just trade with those guys. So before we get into the technical analysis, I'm thinking that a lot of the trade war stuff and a lot of the tariff stuff that Trump's been coming out with over the last couple months is going to start to come to an end. I don't think that if we get any new announcements, it's going to lead to much downside at all. If anything, I think countries will start to come to some resolutions and some trade deals. And if we do start to get that over the next couple months, you can only imagine the amount of upside that we will have when you consider all of the positive fundamental backing we have for Bitcoin and crypto as a whole. And we're starting to see that in the charts. So we've had some negative tariff announcements coming out over the last couple of weeks, and it's really not led to much downside at all. So now imagine if we start to see some resolutions, right? So taking a quick look at Bitcoin, we didn't quite get a test of the previous consolidation down here, but I think that's fine. I'm thinking that a low has been set. I don't think we'll get another move below here. The worst case scenario I have for Bitcoin is a retest of 70K or just below it. Extremely unlikely, in my opinion. Maybe one test, something like that from here. That's the worst case fucking scenario. I just really don't see it happening. Okay, so let's pretend that is just not going to happen and just fucking pray that it doesn't happen, because, you know, if that occurs, it'd have to be some massive black swan event when you consider the amount of negative news and negative sentiment and fear in the market right now. For us to make another low all the way down here, you know, stocks will be fucked. Everything will be fucked if that happens. And we would probably enter a multi-year downtrend in all markets. Okay, so let's assume the low is in. Right. A Bitcoin. The fuck is that? No Java. Bitcoin taking out all of these lows. You know, we consolidated for months there. So it's actually quite healthy for us to run them all out and see if price can reaccumulate, which is what we're doing. So we formed a new range here. So this is the low, the range low, and this is the range high. You can see we took the range lows and we reaccumulated below them. So by reaccumulation, what I mean, or accumulation in general, what that looks like on a chart, or how I interpret it anyway, is a low forming, price then moves below that low, and then we break up above the high that took that low. Price continues to consolidate, and then we get a similar pattern running at the low, then breaking up above the high that took the low. You know, I've been saying the exact same thing for years. You can check out the YouTube channel or any of my content. All I do is just this exact same pattern over and over and over again. You can see it in here. So we form the range low, we take out the range low. The time to get long was down here. We're now running out the range high. So the time to get long is not right here. Okay. The most likely scenario after the first test of a range high is to run back down into the mid-range, something like this. In saying that, I'm not telling you to get short, but what I'm saying is if we get a H4 daily close below this low, because it is the low that is responsible for running the range highs, then the next most likely scenario would be for us to revisit the mid-range there. Okay, so that's the scenario that I'm betting on. That's what I think will happen. I doubt right after the first test of the range high do we just break up. Okay. However, my job as a trader is just to mark out levels and to come up with a game plan for each scenario. Once each scenario kind of occurs, then I can react accordingly. So I've got some levels marked out here. Break it down a little bit more. Okay, so this low was taken out by this level here. If we can retest it on the lower time frames and get some accumulation, something like that, a low followed by a break in structure, then maybe we could continue up into London, New York today. So now what we've done is we've come up with two scenarios. Very fucking simple shit. Either we revisit the lower time frame accumulation there and get another pump into London, New York, or we get a H4 close below that level and revisit the mid-range. This would be the most ideal scenario. If we get something like this, I can add on with more size and be a lot more confident. Something like this though, if we get the retest of that, I wouldn't be too confident in us coming up and testing these levels. So now that we kind of have a bias, we're leaning bullish, or we just stay range bound when we can look for more longs. The next thing to do is to look for possible objectives. So all of these lows were taken out by these highs. So the next obvious objective for price to reach towards, if we are bullish, would be the area that was responsible for running the lows. So that's what I have marked out here. Maybe we don't run out these highs straight off the bat, and that's fine. So what we can do is just look to exit in the area of consolidation, or right up above this high. So that's Bitcoin. Really simple stuff. I'm thinking the low is in. I think all of the tariff stuff is pretty much priced. What we're seeing now is accumulation in this range here. Maybe one retest of 70K, but like I said, that'd just be turmoil. So I really don't even want to consider that being an option. So either we pump from here on the lower time frame consolidation that we have, or we revisit the mid-range where we can look to get long. So that's Bitcoin, easy peasy. Hopefully some easy opportunities in the market. All right, now taking a look at Ethereum, this thing is just so fucked. Like, I've not seen any form of positive news. I can't come up with any reason why this chart looks good. There's a million other places that you could put your money other than in Ethereum and feel a lot better about it. However, it still takes up such a large portion of the total crypto market cap. So I think it's still important to take a look at. For those that were following me throughout, the last couple months, you know that I was heavily fucking long and I had to let go of those positions. I'll never sit here and try to convince you all that I'll be correct all the time, However, I did manage to get out of the positions, still at a massive fucking loss, but, I would be in a much deeper loss if I held on to the positions instead of, admitting that I was wrong. However, let's take a look at the chart and try to come up with any kind of fucking reason why this thing can go up. Am I going to sit there and continue to buy it? No. I think my money and your money are definitely better off elsewhere until we get, at least some kind of positive news or positive sentiment for this fucking shitter. Okay. So let's pretend that we're not looking at Ethereum here for a second. Let's just say we're looking at any other chart or any other asset, but and then just try to chart it. So this entire run up from 2023 right here was caused by this low. We've recently taken it. So although it looks like shit fundamentally and the chart looks bad, is it a time to get short? No. I mean, especially when you consider the bias or the idea that I just ran over with Bitcoin. So we've just taken the low that caused the run up here. So now is not the time to get short. I'm not even going to tell you to fucking get long either. I'm just covering it for the sake of covering it. So that's the low. We can drag that along here. We took that low as well. And then we actually managed to break up above the highs that took the lows right here. So technically accumulation, right? But the chart is just so shit and the sentiment is so shit that it's impossible to even trade this with confidence. Yes, we did run this low as well, but not deeply either, right? So if Bitcoin does pull back to the mid-range, like I said, then Ethereum is just going to fucking plummet, okay? And there's not much support for it to even fall back into. So if Bitcoin follows the lower time frame bullish scenario of retesting that lower time frame consolidation that I just pointed out, then we probably get something like this. We ran out these highs here. You know, this is the consolidation that caused this drop off. So if Bitcoin does see that lower time frame pump, then a run into this level and possibly even running out these highs would be the next likely scenario. But if we do get the mid-range test that I spoke about on Bitcoin, then expect all of this to just, you know, get completely fucking ran out. I saw Peter Brand post this low getting taken out into $500. That guy's fucking retarded. You know, it's very, very, very rarely correct on anything. However, if we do get that mid-range test on Bitcoin and we do continue to consolidate, then I see no reason why Ethereum won't actually run out $1,000. So I'm just gonna stop the analysis here because one, it actually fucking makes me angry looking at it or thinking about it. But two, it just looks like shit. And I think, yeah, there's not much point in paying attention to Ethereum until we get some kind of sentiment change and fundamental change and the chart, you know, starts to pick itself back up. So that's Ethereum, guys. All right, now taking a look at Hype or Hyperliquid. I think a lot of people are downplaying Hype's potential, especially over the next couple of years as regulations start to increase. I see a lot of money flowing into decentralized exchanges, and Hyperliquid, I think, is going to be right at the top. Unless something fucked happens, and you never really know. But just looking at the chart here, not getting too deep into fundamentals, we ran out $10 and we were buying. We did have some decent positions set just below 20. We didn't really trade until we got, or traded anymore until we got back below $10 and just above into 12. So filled up large positions here between $12 and $13. And I think this thing just looks really fucking strong. So like I explained, we're just trading the exact same pattern. For me, I kind of split my trading strategy into two different parts. Okay, the first part is finding an environment to trade in, or fundamentals. You can think of the environment as like a fundamental reason why a chart should go up, or why an asset should go up or it should go down. So the first thing is coming up with a fundamental reason or finding an environment, which is what we've done on Hype. I'm not going to get into that here, but I'm sure most of you know the fundamentals anyway. This thing is just fucking solid. All right, so we have the fundamental reason why the coin should go up. Okay, now we can look for the technical reason why it should go up as well. So looking at the exact same pattern that we've always looked at. Once we run out lows, if we break up above the highs that were responsible for taking the lows, then that is accumulation. So ran out both of these lows here. These were the highs that were responsible for taking the lows. You can see we broke up and we've seen nothing but strength from Hype. Okay, then we have a bunch of resistance up in here. So any retest of accumulation, so you can see we ran out those lows as well, and breaking up above them, above the highs are responsible for taking the lows. So now we have two areas, really simple stuff. Once we reach into any of these areas, right here or right here, then you can look for the same pattern. So you look for a lower time frame low to form. I'm not saying we're going to get down here either, by the way. I'm just pointing out that the chart looks good. When a chart looks good and we're entering an obvious trend, all you need to do is mark out previous areas of accumulation. So right here being the high that took out these lows, or right here being the high that took out these lows. All you need to do is mark out those levels, wait for us to retest them, and then wait for more accumulation. So a sweep of a low followed by a break of a high, and then you can look to add to your position. Sweep of a low followed by a break of a high. You can look to add to your position. Really, really simple shit. We've ticked off all the boxes for the environment and the fundamental reasons, and now we've ticked off the fact that we're entering an obvious uptrend. Now all we need to do is mark out the previous areas of accumulation where we can then look for price to reach towards, where we can just add more if we get more accumulation. So really simple stuff on hype here, guys. Really, really simple stuff. So looking around $17 for more lower time frame accumulation, or around 15 or 14 to 15 as well. So that's hyper liquid. All right, so now that we've covered Bitcoin, Ethereum, and hype, Bitcoin and hype being the two obvious plays where you can park the majority of your capital if you agree with my overall bullish bias. Now we're going to get into some things that obviously you shouldn't fucking put too much money in, but the charts look good and there could be a lot of opportunities. Okay, so we're going to start off with PopCat. All right. We ran out this low here that formed mid 2024, okay, which is not when you run out significant highs and lows, it's not really too significant until you have enough time to kind of see a reaction and what price does. So once we run out an important level, we can then sit and wait for market participants to kind of show their hand, and then we can kind of piggyback that once we see them showing their hand. So we run the low. Now what we can do is wait for price to accumulate, or if price doesn't accumulate, we can wait for price, to distribute, where we can then get short again. But for now, what I think we're seeing here is some accumulation. Do I think we then? I'm not trying to say that we're forming, an absolute fucking bottom and we're just going to, go on some fucking crazy run. However, we've taken down a significant low and we're seeing some accumulation. So what the most likely situation from here, or the most likely scenario from here, is at least some kind of relief, right? So generally speaking, if we run out a major low and then we're getting some accumulation below that major low, we can try to find the level that was responsible for running out that major low, which is what we have right here. We have some consolidation. This was the area that was the most obvious area that was responsible for running that low. So we're accumulating here. What we can do is try to get long into that area. Now, what price does once we reach here, nobody fucking knows, not a single person on the planet. However, we can then wait for price to react. Either we get, some more distribution and then a run down, or we break above it and continue up. But that's not really my job. My job is to wait for price to reach into levels. If I see a reaction, then I can trade that reaction into another level. So let's break this down a little bit without going on too much of a fucking tangent. So this was the high that was responsible for taking this low, and you can see we have broken up above it right here, and we're starting to close above it as well, which is a good sign. As we retest, we got some more accumulation. So we have a sweep right here. This is the low that was responsible for taking the high. Now, the reaction that we're seeing now isn't the most ideal one. So the game plan for PopCat isn't just to blindly enter. I was long earlier, but I've recently cut the position. So it's not, because it isn't clean inside of this area, and now we do actually have some lows that we could run out. The best thing to do is to wait for Bitcoin to kind of show its hand. So if you rewind back to the start of the video, and take a look at my bias for Bitcoin. If Bitcoin does hold at its lower time frame level that we're currently sitting at, then you can kind of look for longs on PopCat on the lower time frames. If, however, we get that mid-range retest that I was talking about, we can look for PopCat to retest its mid-range as well. So, and that, which also lines up with this area, which is the most obvious high that was responsible for running out the range low. So 2 scenarios: either if Bitcoin holds its lower time frame levels, then we can look for a lower time frame accumulation on Popcat. If it doesn't and it wants to retest the mid-range, then we can look for a retest in the mid-range on Popcat. Once we get that, if we get some lower time frame accumulation, something like that, right? Then we can add on to the position there. So that's Popcat. I think a retest of the mid-range where we can look to get long, or if Bitcoin holds its lower time frame levels, then we can look to long Popcat as well, looking to target the most obvious highs that were responsible for running that key low that I brought up. So that's Popcat. Similar to how I just explained on Popcat, once price does take out some major levels, if you do get some accumulation, you can long into the area, the most obvious area that was responsible for running the lows. So we have that here on Dupes, a pretty clean trade coming up. So we ran out this low, and now below it, we're getting some accumulation. So onto the hourly here. So we got a low here. We take out all of those lows. Break up above the high that was responsible for running the lows. Then here, we take out this low, visiting this accumulation. Probably gonna have to go onto the M15. So running out this low into this accumulation, reaccumulating again. Okay, this is the high that was responsible for running the lows. I need to take it back here actually. Breaking up above it, and then reaccumulating again. So taking out all of these lows here and this low here, and then breaking up above the high that is responsible for taking the low. So we're now running into resistance. We've just taken that high. Buying into resistance is not a very good idea. You're better off waiting for a retest of previous accumulation. So we've taken out that high. We could get a run up now and continue up like that. And if that happens, then I just miss the fucking trade and I move on, right? 90% of the game is just following a plan and waiting. If price doesn't follow the plan, which most of the time it fucking won't, then you just move on and find something else. However, here is the plan. So we have some obvious accumulation. If price can reach back into it and reaccumulate, then we can look to enter. Similar to Popcat, looking to trade into the most obvious highs that were responsible for taking key lows, or the most obvious area that was responsible for taking the key lows. So that's dupe, really simple shit. Looking around this area to get long, right? If we get it and we get some reaccumulation, might be able to tighten up the entry a little bit and size up. Looking to trade it into about 50 cents. So that's dupe. All right, so now taking a look at FARTCOIN. Me and the fellas in the Discord have been long this for a little bit now, and I think it's starting to break out. However, with these meme coin plays, my edge has always kind of been in waiting for an alpha to form. So waiting for an obvious trend in a high cap meme. So in this case, it's FARTCOIN, and then looking for beta plays that will then, or that should then follow along with the alpha. So FARTCOIN taking out all of these lows, spending months accumulating right there. And now it's really showing no signs of weakness. As long as we don't break below this low here, I see us just retesting and then continuing up. The really simple shit on FARTCOIN, there's no reason to be looking for shorts now. Although I wouldn't be longing here at resistance, the point of me even showing this chart is not to say, hey, get long or short FARTCOIN. It's just to show that, yes, we have some obvious strength in FARTCOIN. If FARTCOIN is going to go up, then GOAT should follow, and Horny as well. So if you look at the market cap, the all-time high market cap for GOAT was just above $1 billion. The all-time high market cap for FARTCOIN, just above 2 billion. And now let's look at one of the betas created by the same AI, right? In the same category. Why the fuck is Horny sitting below 1 million market cap, while FARTCOIN is just breaching 1 billion. And GOAT, yes, it's still down compared to the rest. GOAT's at 53, FARTCOIN's at 1 billion, Horny's under 1 million. Makes absolutely no sense. And just look at the chart as well, retesting this accumulation. It's been accumulating for months down here as well, retesting support, and we're just starting to shoot up. I think this is a very easy play. Giving price predictions on this is, yeah, I'm not really going to do that. It's too low of a market cap. I don't want to tell you where I'm looking to get out either. Just because it's such low market cap and not many people are talking about this. I don't want to be the guy that starts giving fucking massive predictions on low cap coins, just hoping to hit one and then call myself a fucking genius. However, there is an obvious, I guess the word disparity, I don't know what word to use, but it's, you know, FARTCOIN sitting at 1 billion, GOAT sitting at 50 million. Why is one of the coins that was created by the same AI bot only sitting under 1 million while the chart looks like this? It makes absolutely no fucking sense. So I'm going to end this episode here. I think there's a lot of great charts to look at. We've been over a lot. Bitcoin, the scenarios there. So what have we looked at? We've looked at Bitcoin, we've looked at Hype, we've looked at Jupe, we've looked at Popcat. Now looking at FARTCOIN and Horny. There's plenty of money to be made over the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to be pushing out the content. I'm going to be trading heaps. You know, we have a free Discord that you can join. You don't have to pay a single fucking cent. So you can join that. That will be in my bio or the description of the video. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. We are fucking back. There is a lot of money to be made. Okay, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.